seeing from your quarterback group so far?
I think that the key is we just got to keep improving. I think the first 2 days are with no pads on. It's sometimes hard to say exactly, but I think that I do think there was growth from yesterday to today, especially with the young ones. I think Hudson's pretty consistent. He knows what he's doing. Being in the system for a year and getting as many reps as he got, obviously last year through games and through practice, he knows what he's doing. He consistently, I think, makes good decisions. With our defense, they force contested plays, so we got to make contested plays. But from a decision standpoint, from knowing what he's doing, from really understanding what we're trying to get accomplished each play, I think Hudson understands that really well. With everyone else, like I said, we're trying to catch up on reps, and I do think from yesterday to today there was big improvement on just like consistently doing your job. But that's going to be, I think, for the rest of the camp, for all those guys, is going to be really important for them, is to try to just consistently do my job over and over, and if they do that, they'll give us a chance.
How much is that connection that you and Hudson have? How much has it grown just since the end of last season? And how important is that?
I think it's really important. I think it's grown a lot just from a standpoint of, I think one, he feels way more comfortable and confident. Like, hey, I like this. I don't like this. Hey, what if we did this? Just kind of speaking. Hey, I got an idea. You know what I mean? Where last year it's just kind of yes sir, do what I'm asked to do, and I think he's just, like I said, feels a lot more comfortable and a lot more confident to say, hey, I think if we try this could be good or whatever. You know what I mean? Or if we do something, it's like I just didn't see it right or whatever. He's not afraid to tell us that instead of just keep trying to do it, over and over. And so that's important. And, he does a really good job. I really do think, like, understanding what we're trying to do on each play. And I think he sees it through similar lenses as the coaching staff, and that's important. And I think we'll just keep getting better and better as the camp goes, and hopefully have a heck of a spring. Fall.
The helmet communication affected that at all? I mean, before you were kind of figuratively trying to be in his head, and now you're literally in his head.
Yeah, it'll be good, I think. Definitely can give him like last second tips, or you know what I mean, like if we need to do something with the running back or something, you can always give him just like a last second tip. Obviously I think that's going to cut off at some point on the play clock, so once that happens, he better, if something looks weird, he better be able to get us right, but I really do, I think it's, obviously the NFL does, and that's a pretty good product, so getting to that, I think, is going to be a good thing for college sports. And I think there will be like an adjustment period for everyone. Just kind of figuring out what works best for you with the new, on offense and defense and just across the country with it kind of being a new thing, trying to figure out what works best and how to most effectively use it. I think there will be like an adjustment period to that. But I've enjoyed it so far in practice because, like you said, like, hey, move the back real quick, you know what I'm saying, and we can get him to where we need him.
Off the field, whereas Hudson got better. He looks like he's stronger, put on some pounds, and obviously, last year he was playing through some injuries that under other circumstances maybe you don't have him playing, but seems healthy, seems bigger, stronger. That's got to be huge for him, just trying to endure a whole season.
For sure, I think that he's definitely gained some weight. He can probably tell you to the like
Kilogram?
to the kilogram, as dialed in as they are, all that stuff. But he'll definitely be able to tell you some of that. But he's definitely gained weight, and I do think that with his athleticism, we try to avoid hits as much as possible. I think naturally playing the position, you're like playing the quarterback position, it's unavoidable. You're going to take hits because you get to hold the ball every play, and they're trying to hit the guy with the football. So obviously everyone's trying to hit you on every single play. So you're naturally going to take some hits. So I think that the increased weight will definitely help him with durability. And then the other piece of that is, he's an athletic kid, and so because of that, you don't want to take his creativity away on the football field. But by the same token, you got to, like, hey, be smart, don't take a hit. Well, like I said, at times he's just trying to make plays, and he's going to take a couple more hits. So staying healthy is extremely important, I think, for our entire football team, but particularly for him, and he did a heck of a job since last, December, whenever our last game was, really buying into that, and he's definitely gained some weight. And like I said, I think his confidence is really high right now, and that goes a long ways.
Can you sort of break down the backup spot? Is it basically a two-man race between Marcos and Ryan?
They've gotten the most of the reps so far, during camp, and trying to see what both those younger guys can do. Obviously Bennett's still in the room as well, and I think we're pretty confident that, like, Bennett knows what he's doing, and if we throw him out there, like, he can execute the offense. Those young two guys, they really have to, they just need reps because it's still newer for them. College football is newer for them. The offense, they're still getting to learn it. And so both super talented, very different players, but by the same token, very talented players. And kind of like I was talking about earlier, with those two, like consistency has to come, and the best way to get more consistent is to get reps and screw it up and get coached and hopefully improve, learn from that mistake and improve.
The offense as a whole, more depth on the O-line, more depth at receiver. Seemed like there was an emphasis on getting more playmakers to surround Hudson with. So.
For sure, and especially up front, we got hit with an injury bug like I've never seen, really, to be honest with you, last year. And what I was probably the most proud about those guys is there were no excuses. It was never like, oh, poor pitiful us. We don't have any guys. I can remember the last couple of weeks of practice, we didn't even hardly practice with the O-line. It was just walkthroughs with them, and then if we wanted to go full speed, we had to get them off the field because we just didn't have enough to practice, And so, but they never blinked, and really, to be honest with you, towards the end, I thought they played as well as they'd played all year. And that was with a really beat up unit. And so adding depth at that position was obviously going to be super important for us because, again, you don't want to get to the point where you can't even practice or you don't feel like, man, we're going to be lucky to get through the game this week. And so added depth there, and not only depth, I think we added talent and quality depth. And so that'll be good for us in the receiver room. Again, those numbers got low last year, kind of beat up, and we had to get, one thing I think we needed was size and length. With Jamal coming back off of injury, that'll definitely, naturally we had a big guy there that wasn't around last year. And then we got, obviously brought in some guys with some size that should help make plays out there on the perimeter.
Have any of the receivers caught your eye? Any of the new guys or freshmen?
Shamar had a heck of a day today, and so he's a young kid, and he wasn't here in the spring, and and so guys that weren't here in the spring, when they get here in the summer, you get to see them catch routes on air, and kind of get excited about people, but you've never seen him practice, and you think there's going to be a big learning curve. And with him, what's been probably the most impressive thing about him is there's been zero hesitation. It doesn't mean like he's been perfect, obviously, and I'm sure he's busted a play or two here or there on the first couple days, but he plays with no fear, no hesitation, and because of that, he's made a lot of plays. And so he's got a lot of talent. He's long. He has some twitch. With really, really good ball skills. And so even today, to be honest, he got beat on at the release point, but found ways to make plays. And so that's fun to watch. And again, with the way our defense plays, they create contested plays. And so to make big plays, it's usually going to be contested. You're going to have to make a heck of a play, and he's done a good job of doing that the first couple of days.
Marco's decision making for a true freshman who's never played a college game, just in the periods we saw, seems to be pretty heady quarterback there.
Yeah, he again, there's not every time, I think mostly if you go watch the tape, when we go watch the tape, if you're watching Hudson, you're like, yep, that's where the ball should go, and that's where the ball. And it's not always perfect, obviously, you know what I'm saying? But from a decision-making standpoint, every rep, you're like, yeah, that's pretty much it. You know what I mean? That's where you'd want it to go. Now we still got to make the play, or he's got to make the throw, or avoid a rush, or whatever. There's obviously improvement, but from a decision-making standpoint, he's normally dialed in. Marcos. It's a little more up and down. Every now and then he makes a decision where you're like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? What did you see there? But I do think that's improved. I think that got better from day one to day two. And I think the same thing in the spring. Every practice, it seemed like, he got more and more comfortable and made better decisions. But he's got a ton of talent. When he makes the right decision, it's pretty impressive. And so, like you said, there towards the end, I think it's probably when you were out here and got to see some of it, he made some really, really nice throws and consistently made good decisions. And because of that, he moved the unit.
And how much could you use this tight end room? Man, it looks like it could be a special group.
For sure. That's they've been a strong point since I've been here. Obviously, we had a lot of injuries in that room as well last year. But if they can stay healthy, but that last game, we were beat up kind of across the board, and George comes in as true freshman and has an unbelievable game. Then this spring, this fall, having them all healthy, if we can keep them healthy, they could do some really, really fun things for us. They can make us super versatile and could be big-time playmakers for us. And so I think, again, the key is going to be to try to keep those guys healthy.
The Big Ten has not traditionally been a league that produces a lot of top-end NFL quarterbacks, but that's starting to change, it seems like. And now you're bringing in USC, Washington, Oregon, some schools that have produced more of those guys. How do you see maybe the vibe in the Big Ten as it relates to quarterbacks changing?
Yeah. Yeah, I think bringing those in, really I think the future of college football is a really interesting spot right now. Just to be honest with you, it almost seems like we're kind of on a tipping point, and I don't know what's going to happen. I think that obviously the Big Ten's a great place to be right now. A lot of people trying to get into that league. Obviously the SEC is another league that seems pretty stable right now. So bringing new teams into it isn't shocking, but I do think it's kind of great. Like, I could see in 3 to 5 years, you look up and like it'd be a completely different model that we don't recognize right now, and be like, man, that's crazy that it changed that much so quickly. But I don't know what the future's going to look like. But I do think the Big Ten as a whole, like bringing in, making it a little bit more of a nationwide league. You know, you're going to be in warm weather in November, possibly playing in Southern California and stuff like that. And so, you know, I think in the past, the Big Ten kind of traditionally is kind of a, you know, get in big sets, hand the football off, and produce big running backs, and not a whole lot of, like you said, passing quarterbacks. But I think that vibe's changing a little bit. Part of it's, I think, because of some of the staffs that have been hired into the Big Ten. Like, you kind of get more spread offensive mentality people. Then you also, like you said, you're bringing in West Coast teams. That's always kind of been the case. But the cool thing about Purdue is they've always, you know, it's been a place where they've always kind of spread it out and throw it, even before it was kind of popular to do that. You know what I mean? And so that's kind of a neat thing about the history and the tradition of Purdue that's a little bit different than the rest of the Big Ten. But I do think the rest of the Big Ten is definitely evolving in that direction, just because I think the entire game of football is evolving in the direction of you better have a really good quarterback or you don't have a chance to win. You know what I'm saying? And so because of that, I think that's why you see like more and more NFL quarterbacks coming out of this league, because I think that instead of putting an emphasis on you got to have a big back and just hand it off every down and hope that you can find a way to win that game that way, I think at every level, no matter where you are, the quarterback play is so important that everyone's putting such a high emphasis on like going and finding an elite guy.
Do you plan to use that coast-to-coast presence to your advantage in recruiting now? Does it allow you to appeal to athletes that maybe you couldn't appeal to as easily before?
I think there's definitely a chance of that, you know what I mean? Because, you know, in the past, if you got much west of here, like you're out of the Big Ten footprint, you know what I'm saying? Now it doesn't matter where in the country you are. Like, oh, there's a Big Ten school right down the street from you somewhere, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter if you're on the East Coast or the West Coast or anywhere in between. So I think that the Big Ten as a whole and the SEC, I think both have kind of been nationally recruiting for a little bit now, but with the conferences expanding, but like I said, it becoming kind of coast-to-coast conferences, I think you'll continue to see that, and you'll continue to see players from that maybe weren't traditionally kids that you recruited to certain conferences. I think that'll change, and it'll be a much bigger mix.